Zarak V. Noor, supreme champion of the Galactic Colosseum, adjusted his ceremonial armor and sneered at the viewing screen. Another human competitor? How predictable. The Galactic Council's desperate attempt to include the newest sentient species in their precious games was becoming tiresome. "You cannot be serious," Zarak growled, his four eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of extreme irritation among the Vexari species. "This is the 7th human you have matched me against this cycle. Do they truly believe quantity will overcome quality?" Tournament director Grel K. Tor, a diminutive purple-skinned plethorian with tentacles for arms, nervously cleared his throat sacs. "The human female has won 27 consecutive matches, champion Zarak. The betting pools are substantial. 27 matches? Against whom? Juvenile Florbians? Pacifist Quaxians?" Zarak laughed, a rumbling sound that made the room's metal fixtures vibrate. "What name does this soft-skinned creature call herself?" "She goes by Mira Daniels," Director Grell replied, consulting his data tablet. "The crowds have nicknamed her the Hurricane. Apparently, it's a destructive weather phenomenon from Earth." "How quaint," Zarak sneered, running a clawed hand over his championship crown, 14 razor-sharp spikes of rare Jacksonium metal, each representing a year of undefeated combat. "And what special accommodations must I make for this fragile species? Reduced gravity? Breathable atmosphere supplements? Handicapped scoring?" Director Grell shifted uncomfortably. "No accommodations. She fights under standard Colosseum regulations." Zarak's upper left eye twitched. "Impossible. Humans require specific environmental parameters too." "Not this one," Grell interrupted, immediately regretting his boldness as Zarak loomed over him. "Apologies, champion. I only meant to say that Daniels has requested no modifications to the arena conditions." "It's fascinating," Zarak murmured, genuinely intrigued for the first time. "Perhaps this hurricane will last 30 seconds instead of 20. He flicked a claw against his championship crown, producing a resonant ping that made Director Grell wince. "When do I get to crush this human's ridiculous ambitions?" "Tomorrow. Main event. The Sovereign Tier will be attending." All four of Zarak's eyes widened simultaneously. "The Sovereign Tier? For a human match? Preposterous." "Ticket sales are unprecedented," Grell explained with a nervous flutter of his tentacles. "The broadcast rights alone have enough." Zarak snarled, slamming his fist against the wall, leaving a sizable dent in the reinforced metal. "Prepare my combat suite. I want to review footage of this human's previous matches." Hours later, Zarak sat alone in his private quarters, replaying footage of Mira Daniels' fights for the 12th time. His initial dismissal had evolved into focused study. The human moved differently. While most species telegraphed their attacks with obvious muscle tensions and weight shifts, Daniels seemed to flow from one position to another, almost as if the computer, slow playback to 1/4 speed, he commanded. On the holographic display, Mira Daniels executed a spinning kick against a Dravax warrior twice her size. Even at reduced speed, her movements maintained an unsettling fluidity. "Computer, enhance Sector 4 Alpha." The image zoomed in on Daniels' eyes. They remained calm, focused, calculating, even as the Dravax charged. Not the wild-eyed frenzy most beings displayed in the arena. "Interesting," Zarak muttered. "Computer, show biological stats." A side panel displayed the human's vital signs during the match: heart rate, respiration, neural activity. All elevated, but controlled. Not the chaotic spikes typical of adrenaline-based species. Zarak shut down the display with a dismissive wave. "So the human has some training. It changes nothing." But as he prepared for sleep cycle, an unfamiliar sensation crept through his nervous system. It took him several minutes to identify it. A doubt. He crushed the feeling immediately. 14 years undefeated. 173 challengers broken. No human, no being in the galaxy could stand against him. Tomorrow would simply be another coronation. The Galactic Coliseum hummed with the energy of 80,000 spectators from 200 different species. Atmosphere barriers separated incompatible biological needs while maintaining visual continuity throughout the massive structure. In the preparation chamber, Zarak methodically checked his armor, a ritual unchanged for 14 years. His forearms worked in perfect coordination, testing joints, pressure seals, and weapon mounts. "The human has arrived," announced Pittic, his longtime handler. "She's in preparation pod 7. And? Is she trembling? Praying to primitive deities? Consuming intoxicants to dull her fear?" Zarak asked, not bothering to look up from his equipment check. "She's sleeping," Pittic replied, confusion evident in his voice. Zarak paused, a chest plate half secured. "Sleeping? D. Yes, champion. Lying horizontal, eyes closed, regular breathing patterns. Sleeping. Before facing me? Before facing death?" Zarak laughed, but it sounded hollow even to his own hearing appendages. "Wake her. Tell her champion Zarak Venor grants her a final meal before combat." Pittic scurried away, returning minutes later looking flustered. She said, and I quote, "Tell his shininess I ate a big breakfast and he should worry about his own digestion after I knock all 4 of his arms into next week." Zarak froze, then slowly turned all 4 eyes toward his handler. "His shininess?" Her exact words, champion. She also asked if your crown comes in adult sizes, or if that's the largest they make. The preparation room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Arena staff quickly found reasons to be elsewhere. "I will tear her apart," Zarak said, his voice unnervingly calm. "Slowly, piece by piece, I will make her beg for." 2 minutes to entry, champion, interrupted the arena announcer through the comm system. Zarak snapped his final armor piece into place and placed his championship crown upon his head. "It's time to educate this human about her place in the galactic hierarchy." The entry tunnel stretched before him, pulsing with light that synchronized with the roaring crowd. Zarak stepped forward, each footfall deliberately heavy, projecting the dominance that had become his trademark. "Sentience of the galaxy," boomed the announcer's voice, translated simultaneously into 200 languages. "Welcome to the event of the cycle." The crowd's roar intensified as hidden machinery began raising the combatants' platforms toward the arena floor. Defending his title for the 174th time, the undefeated, the unstoppable, the supreme champion of the Galactic Coliseum, Zarak Venor. Zarak's platform locked into place, and he raised all 4 arms in his signature pose, triggering explosive cheers from his supporters. The championship crown gleamed under the arena lights, its 14 spikes catching and refracting the illumination into dazzling patterns. And his challenger, the announcer, paused for dramatic effect as the second platform rose. From the planet Earth, winner of 27 consecutive matches, the human they call the Hurricane, Mira Daniels. The human stood on her platform, looking absurdly small and vulnerable. No elaborate armor like Zarak's just fitted combat gear that left her arms and lower legs exposed. Her hair was pulled back tightly, revealing a face that appeared almost bored. The contrast between the combatants couldn't have been more stark. Zarak, nearly 3 meters tall, 4 powerful arms armored from head to toe, crowned in glory, against a human female barely half his size, minimally protected, and seemingly unconcerned. Director Grell's voice cut through the stadium. "Combatants, approach the center circle." Zarak strode forward confidently, his gait practiced and imposing. The human walked casually, as if strolling through a pleasure garden. They stopped 2 meters apart. Up close, Zarak could see the human's eyes clearly for the first time, cool gray, evaluating and completely fearless. "The rules are standard," announced Director Grell. "Combat continues until submission, incapacitation, or fatality. Weaponry is limited to what you have registered. Arena hazards will activate randomly. Begin at the tone." Zarak leaned forward slightly. "Any last words, human? Perhaps you'd like to submit now and keep your limbs attached?" Mira Daniels looked up at him with a slight smile. Nice crown. Compensating for something? Before Zarak could respond, the starting tone blared through the arena. Centuries of evolution and 14 years of championship fighting triggered Zarak's opening move, a sweeping low kick designed to topple the smaller opponent. It was textbook, executed flawlessly and an appropriate way to humble the disrespectful human. The kick connected, catching Daniel's ankle and sending her tumbling to the ground. The crowd gasped collectively, then erupted in cheers for their champion. Zarak straightened, raising his upper arms triumphantly, a premature celebration. Because in the next moment Daniel's tumble transformed into a controlled roll that brought her directly between Zarak's legs. Before he could react, she delivered a precision strike to a nerve cluster behind his right knee joint. Zarak's leg buckled. Off balance and surprised, he staggered backward. The human was already on her feet, circling to his left. "That's one," she said casually. "Want to try for two?" Rage flooded Zarak's system. He launched a coordinated forearm attack, a combination that had broken the defenses of every previous challenger. Daniels didn't block. She didn't need to. She simply wasn't where his fists landed, having slipped between two of his striking arms with a fluid motion that defied Zarak's understanding of human biomechanics. "That's two," she counted, delivering a sharp elbow to a vulnerable connection point in his side armor. Pain flared through Zarak's torso. Not debilitating, but shocking. No one had penetrated his armor in years. The crowd's mood shifted. Uncertain murmurs replaced confident cheers. "Stand still and fight properly," Zarak demanded, frustration edging into his voice. "But why would I do that?" Daniels replied, ducking under another swing. "Your reach is longer, your strength is greater, and you have twice as many arms. Only an idiot would stand still." "You are just running away," Zarak growled between strikes, each missing its target by increasingly wider margins. "No," Daniels corrected, "I'm making you run out of breath." And to Zarak's horror, he realized she was right. His breathing had become labored. His movements slower. The heavy championship armor designed to intimidate and protect was now working against him. "That's three," Daniels said after landing another precise strike to his armor's joint mechanism, causing his lower right arm to freeze momentarily. Desperation replaced rage. Zarak activated his armor's auxiliary systems, technically legal but considered dishonorable to use so early in a match. But the pneumatic enhancers hissed as they amplified his strength. Targeting systems came online, projecting trajectory predictions into his visual field. "Oh," Daniels said, noticing the change. "Bringing out the toys already? We are only 2 minutes in, your shininess." "Silence," Zarak roared, launching forward with computer-assisted precision. A devastating combo: right upper hook, left upper cross, both lower arms targeting the human's midsection, connected with nothing but air as Daniels dropped and spun, sweeping Zarak's legs from under him. The champion crashed to the arena floor with a thunderous impact. His crown, the symbol of his supremacy, clattered away, spinning across the ground before settling several meters away. The stadium fell completely silent. Zarak scrambled to rise, but Daniels was already there, her foot pressing precisely on a critical junction in his armor, immobilizing him. "That's 4, she said quietly, for his hearing only. "Would you like to continue, or shall we call it here?" "Your choice, champion." The silence in the Galactic Coliseum was absolute. 80,000 spectators held their breath as the unthinkable unfolded before them. The great Zarak V. Noor, 14-year champion, lay flat on his back with a human foot pressing him down. For 3 excruciating seconds, Zarak couldn't process what had happened. His neural pathways, evolved over millennia to secure Vexari dominance, simply refused to acknowledge the situation. But reality has a way of asserting itself, and the cold floor against his back couldn't be denied. "I will not yield," he gasped, his primary respiratory system struggling against the precise pressure Daniels applied. "Your call," she replied with a shrug, releasing him and stepping back. "But that crown looks better on the floor than it did on your head." The mention of his crown ignited something primal in Zarak. He surged upward with a roar that rattled the arena's force field barriers. Auxiliary power systems in his armor overclocked dangerously, pumping combat stimulants directly into his bloodstream. The warning indicators flashed across his helmet display, but he dismissed them all. The crowd found its voice again, erupting into a cacophony of shouts, cheers, and boos divided now between the long-dominant champion and the upstart human. "You dare?" Zarak thundered, all four arms extended in attack position, his combat training temporarily overshadowed by raw fury. "I am Zarak V. Nor. I have crushed armies. I have. You talk too much," Daniels interrupted, casually circling to maintain distance. "Is this a fight or a speech competition?" The Sovereign Tier viewing box, housing the highest-ranking officials in the Galactic Council, buzzed with unprecedented activity. Grand Sovereign Peltoral leaned forward, 6 eyes blinking rapidly in the Dromarian expression of intense interest. "Remarkable," the Grand Sovereign commented to Director Grell, who stood nervously at attention. "The human female employs techniques I haven't observed in 700 cycles of the Colosseum." "Yes, Your Magnificence," Grell agreed hastily. "Her style appears to be a hybrid of several Earth combat disciplines, adapted for xenophysiological weaknesses." Back in the arena, Zarak had recovered enough composure to switch tactics. His initial berserker rush had failed spectacularly, with Daniels simply sidestepping his charge. Now he moved more cautiously, using his superior reach to keep her at a distance while his armor's targeting systems recalibrated. "You cannot evade forever, human," he said, his voice artificially calm. "One mistake. That's all it will take." "You are absolutely right," Daniels replied, surprising him. "One mistake is all it takes. Funny thing is, you have already made 7. Zarak's eyes narrowed. "What nonsense are you?" "1. You underestimated me from the start," she began, ducking under a perfectly timed swing. 2. You relied too heavily on that fancy armor. She slipped past his guard again, landing a quick strike to a hydraulic coupling. 3. You telegraph your attacks with your upper left shoulder. Each point was punctuated by another precision hit against Zarak's increasingly compromised armor. Warning lights flashed more urgently inside his helmet. 4. Daniels continued, you are fighting angry instead of smart. 5. You haven't adjusted your style to a smaller opponent. 6. You keep protecting that stupid crown even though it's not on your head anymore. Enough. Enough, Zarak bellowed, activating his armor's emergency reserves, a desperate move that would give him 30 seconds of maximum power at the cost of complete system shutdown afterward. Time seemed to slow as his perception accelerated. He could see the micro-expressions crossing Daniel's face, not fear, as he'd expected, but something far more troubling, anticipation. 7, she said, her voice eerily calm as he lunged toward her with superhuman speed. You just activated your power reserves exactly when I wanted you to. What happened next would be replayed on galactic sports networks for decades. Instead of evading, Daniels stepped into his attack, a move so counterintuitive that Zarak's combat computer actually froze for a millisecond trying to calculate a response. She slid along his right side, her fingers finding precise pressure points between his armor plates. Pain exploded through Zarak's nervous system as targeted nerve clusters short-circuited. His armor were responding to the sudden physiological crisis, initiated emergency protocols which promptly conflicted with the manual overrides he'd activated. System crash was instantaneous and complete. Zarak V. Nor, supreme champion of the Galactic Colosseum, dropped to the arena floor like a deactivated drone, his magnificent armor transformed into an immobilizing prison. The stadium erupted into chaos. Never in the 3,000-year history of the new galactic era had a champion fallen so completely, so quickly. Betting systems crashed across 17 sectors of space as impossibly long odds paid out simultaneously. That's what I have been trying to tell you, Daniels said, kneeling beside the immobilized champion. Fighting isn't about who's biggest or strongest or has the fanciest equipment. It's about understanding weaknesses, yours and theirs. Through his transparent helmet visor, Zarak's 4 eyes blinked in confused sequence. "How?" he managed to ask, his voice barely audible through the malfunctioning audio system. Daniels smiled slightly. "I studied you. For months. Every match, every interview, every public appearance. While you were watching my last 27 matches once, I watched your last 173 fights 50 times each." She stood and walked over to where his championship crown lay on the arena floor. The 14 spikes of Jacksonium metal gleamed under the lights as she lifted it. "Do you submit?" Director Grell's voice boomed through the stadium, following protocol even though the outcome was visibly decided. Zarak tried to move, to fight, to deny the impossible reality confronting him. His armor gave a pathetic whine before shutting down completely. "I submit," he finally whispered, the words catching in his throat like shards of glass. The words, picked up by the arena's sensitive audio system, echoed throughout the massive structure. The crowd's response was deafening, a wall of sound that seemed to physically press against the force field barriers. Director Grell appeared at the center of the arena, flanked by medical drones prepared to assist the fallen champion. The victor, Mira Daniels of Earth. Daniels approached Zarak again, still holding his championship crown. Medical drones worked to disengage his armor's emergency locks. "You know what the biggest difference between humans and most galactic species is?" she asked quietly. Zarak, partially freed from his armor but still prone on the ground, could only stare up at her. "You evolved as apex predators on your respective worlds," she continued. "Vexari, Dromarians, Plethorians, all of you dominated your evolutionary chains. But humans? We were prey animals for most of our history. We survived by outsmarting bigger, stronger predators." She placed the championship crown on the ground beside him, rather than claiming it for herself as tradition dictated. "Something to think about during your recovery," she said, turning to walk away. 3 lunar cycles later, Zarak V. Noor sat alone in the observation deck of his private vessel, orbiting Earth. The planet's blue-white swirl of clouds and oceans filled the viewport, deceptively peaceful from this distance. He no longer wore the championship crown. Its absence felt strange, even after 90 days of phantom weight that his nervous system still sometimes tried to compensate for. "Champion, we have received clearance for atmospheric entry," his pilot's voice announced over the comm system. "I am no longer champion," Zarak corrected automatically. "And proceed as authorized." The ship banked gently, beginning its controlled descent toward the planet that had produced his conqueror. His defeat had shattered more than his undefeated streak. The entire concept of Vexari supremacy, a cornerstone of his species' cultural identity for millennia, had been called into question across the galaxy. Diplomatic incidents had erupted in 17 systems. Trade agreements were being reconsidered. The Galactic Council had convened emergency sessions to address the human question, all because one small female had knocked him flat on his back. The irony wasn't lost on Zarak. He, who had spent his entire life proving Vexari superiority through combat, had inadvertently accomplished what human diplomats had failed to achieve in decades of effort, forcing the galactic community to take their species seriously. The ship broke through Earth's cloud layer, revealing the sprawling cityscape of what humans called New Tokyo. Massive structures of steel and polymer stretched toward the sky, interrupted by patches of carefully maintained green space, a strange blend of technology and primitive biological cultivation that epitomized humanity's contradictory nature. "We have received coordinates for landing pad 7 Alpha, the pilot reported. "Security protocols are extensive. Comply with all requirements," Zarak replied. "I come as a petitioner, not a dignitary." The landing was smooth and efficient. As the ship's ramp extended to the ground, Zarak adjusted the simple gray tunic he wore, so different from the elaborate champion's armor he'd relied upon for 14 years. A small reception committee waited at the bottom of the ramp, 3 humans in formal attire and 1 familiar figure in casual training clothes. Zarak V. Noor, Mira Daniels, called up to him, a hint of surprise in her voice. When they told me a Vexari dignitary had requested a private meeting, I didn't expect it would be you. Zarak descended the ramp slowly, feeling the unfamiliar pull of Earth's gravity. Slightly stronger than standard Colosseum settings, but nothing a Vexari couldn't handle. I am no longer a dignitary, he said, stopping 2 meters from the humans, the same distance they'd stood apart before their match. My house has stripped me of titles. I come as myself. Daniels dismissed the other humans with a gesture, waiting until they'd retreated before speaking again. That must have been difficult for you, she said, and to Zarak's surprise, her tone contained no mockery. Less difficult than one might imagine, he replied. There is a curious freedom in disgrace. I wouldn't call it disgrace. You fought well. I fought predictably, Zarak corrected. There is no honor in that. A brief smile touched Daniel's face. So why are you here? Revenge? Challenge me to a rematch? Zarak shook his head, the gesture feeling strange but necessary for human communication. I have come to learn. Now genuine surprise showed on her face. Learn? Learn what? How to fight like prey, he said simply. Daniel stared at him for a long moment, then burst into laughter, a sound Zarak had never heard from a human before. It was pleasant. You came halfway across the galaxy to ask me to train you? A Vexari warrior asking a human for combat instruction? The Galactic Council would have collective cardiac arrest. The Council's cardiac health is not my concern, Zarak stated flatly. For 14 years, I believed I understood combat. You demonstrated the limits of that understanding in less than 5 minutes. I wish to expand my knowledge. Daniels crossed her arms, studying him with those calculating gray eyes. And what do I get out of this arrangement? I have brought data, Zarak replied. Complete physiological breakdowns of 73 sentient species, including vulnerable points, nervous system layouts, and biological weaknesses not commonly known outside respective homeworlds. That's highly classified information, Daniels said slowly. Yes, Zarak agreed. It is. You are committing treason against the entire galactic community. Perspective is a curious thing, Zarak commented, looking up at the blue Earth sky. From where I stand, I am merely leveling an uneven playing field. Daniels laughed again, shaking her head. You are nothing like the arrogant champion I fought 3 months ago. That individual was defeated, Zarak stated matter-of-factly. I am what remains, seeking to become something new. For nearly a full minute, Daniels said nothing, her expression unreadable to Zarak's 4 eyes. Then she extended her hand, a human gesture of agreement he had familiarized himself with during the journey. Training starts tomorrow, 5 a.m. Don't be late, and don't expect me to go easy on you because you are new. Zarak carefully took her hand, mindful of his claw strength. I would be disappointed by anything less than your full capability, instructor. As they walked toward the training facility, Zarak felt a peculiar sensation he hadn't experienced since his earliest combat days, anticipation mixed with uncertainty. The status he'd lost, champion, dignitary, pride of the Vexari, seemed strangely insignificant compared to what lay ahead. One question, Daniels said as they reached the facility entrance. What happened to your crown? The real tradition is for the victor to take it. I had it melted down, Zarak replied. Reforged into something more useful. Which is? Zarak reached into a concealed pocket and produced a small metallic object, a simple ring sized for a human hand, forged from 14 spikes of Jacksonium metal. A reminder, he said, offering it to her. That true strength often comes from unexpected places. Daniels accepted the ring, turning it over in her fingers with an expression Zarak couldn't interpret. You know, Zarak, she said finally, I think humanity and the Vexari might have more in common than either of us realized. How so? We are both too stubborn to stay down when we are knocked flat, she replied with a grin. Come on, former champion. You have got a lot to learn about fighting like prey. And for the first time since his defeat, Zarak V. Noor felt something unexpected bloom within his 4-chambered heart, hope. not for restored glory or reclaimed titles, but for something far more valuable, a new understanding of strength taught by the most unlikely of teachers.